flesh of my flesh. I have felt something in you since the day we met. In my time, there were mystical movements among the Sith that sought to communicate with ghosts and harness their power. It's a source of great power, but it has destroyed many a Sith. Seek this knowledge.
Peace is a lie. There is only passion. Through passion, I gain strength. Through strength, power. Through power, victory. Swear, if you don't silence Thanaton, I will. I will not be betrayed. I will not die. And when I've killed this slave, you will all answer for it.
The Kagath is a playground game. Murder has no rules.
You are Lord Kallig now. It was once a glorious name. Use it well.
Slaves of the Sith Empire were known to be worked to death, tied down to an unforgiving society that would discriminate and categorize by race and species. The alien race known as Twi'leks had suffered the most under this cruel and relentless doctrine. However, the Force can touch any being, even a slave, and those who are touched by the Force are destined for great things. Around the year of 3643 BBY, a Force-sensitive slave was sent to the world of Korriban to be trained in the ways of the dark side. Slaves who arrived to Korriban were treated with just as much disdain as everywhere else in the Empire. An overseer named Harkon was to supervise the slaves' trials at the Sith Academy. They were placed into a group of aspiring acolytes who were also likely slaves beforehand. However, one of the individuals in this group was a Sith pureblood named Thon. Overseer Harkon's attitude made it clear he favoured the pure-blooded Sith over the slaves in the group.
Meet our newcomer, Thon Alt. This is real Sith strength, and he will tear you apart and crush your bones, slaves.
Our slave's first trial was to visit the Sith hermit known as Spindrel, from within the depths of the tomb of Ajunta Paul. Spindrel's role on Korriban was to test the basic strength of new arrivals. If they passed a simple test of combat, they would progress. If they failed, they would be cast aside and exiled, perhaps even killed. Failed apprentices and acolytes could often be found roaming the tombs of the Valley of the Dark Lords. Our slave acolyte passed their trial and returned to the overseer for further instruction. After being berated and insulted more by the overseer, our acolyte reports to Inquisitor Zin for their next trial. This time the acolyte's interrogation skills would be tested. They had to interrogate a real prisoner and former acolyte for information about an unauthorized murder within the temple. After discovering the truth, Inquisitor Zin explains that the perpetrator is in fact an apprentice to a Dark Council member, meaning no further action would be taken, as the Dark Council was the highest authority in the Empire and not to be challenged by lower-ranking Sith. With Inquisitor Zin's approval, the acolyte returned to Overseer Harkon for their next trial. A trial of intellect was next for the acolyte. However, their task was set to be difficult. Overseer Harkon had instructed the acolyte to venture into the tomb of Marka Ragnos and retrieve an artifact that had been locked away for thousands of years. No Sith has managed to break the lock so far, and our acolyte did not have much hope for being the first. Yet our acolyte had a great future ahead of them. The Force was incredibly strong in the acolytes, almost as if it was in their blood to be Sith. The acolyte throws lightning at the locked artifact in frustration. However, this act turned out to be the magical key. The artifact revealed itself and the acolyte was successful with their trial. When returning to the Overseer, he accuses the acolyte of bringing back a fake. This artifact was given to a Sith Lord named Zash. Lord Zash would be recruiting a new apprentice from Overseer Harkon's group, and he was in favour of Thon winning the role. With just 4 acolytes remaining, Harkon sends each acolyte on their own unique trial. Our slave acolyte is once again sent to the tombs within the Valley of the Dark Lords, this time to find and retrieve ancient text authored by none other than Twi'lek Horde himself. After a plentiful amount of time, the acolyte finds the texts and brings them back to the Overseer. Despite being sent on dangerous trial after dangerous trial, the Overseer is amazed to see the slave acolyte still thriving. The Overseer wanted Thon to be selected as Zash's apprentice, so the Overseer struck a deal with the other 2 remaining acolytes. If they ambush and kill the slave acolyte, they will be rewarded with going home to their families. Interfering with the trials on Korriban was forbidden. Just before returning to the Overseer, our acolyte stumbles into and meets Lord Zash. She explains that she has high hopes for the acolyte who retrieved Marka Ragnars's artifact. After successfully retrieving the text of Twi'lek Horde, the slave acolyte is sent for another trial upstairs within the academy walls. They were set to train underneath a combat master to learn combat basics. However, this was a ploy by Overseer Harkon to kill the acolyte. The 2 acolytes Harkon struck a deal with ambushed our slave acolyte in the training room. Unfortunately for them, they were no match for our acolyte as they died trying to win their freedom. Upon returning to the Overseer from the ambush, Overseer Harkon once again berates our acolyte and verbally abuses them. Harkon then explains that the final trial will take place within the tomb of Naga Sadow. There the acolyte must breach an entrance and awaken a deadly assassin from their slumber, known as a Dashade. This Dashade would then lead the acolyte to a star map that Lord Zash herself wanted personally. Before setting off for the final trial, Lord Zash enters the room with new information. However, the Overseer had sent Thon earlier into the tombs to give him an head start advantage. As it would turn out, the text our slave acolyte retrieved from Twi'lek Horde's tomb had explained that to get inside Naga Sadow's locked room, you would need 4 ancient rods. Seeing as Thon wasn't there to hear the information, it was likely he would fail the trial. At this point in time, Zash realizes that Harkon had been tampering with her group. She then proceeds to scold him and tell him to no longer interfere. With all the information fresh in the mind, the slave acolyte sets off for their final trial. Once the 4 ancient rods were located and placed onto the correct podium, the secret entrance to the Dashade would unlock. When the acolyte gets inside, they must explain to the Dashade that their former master is dead, which causes the monster to attack. After defeating the Dashade in battle, they yield and surrender their services to the acolyte, obeying their every command. The acolyte is able to find the star map hidden within the tomb with the help of the Dashade. With the trial a complete success, the acolyte returns to the Sith Academy. Upon arrival to Harkon's office, it became clear that Thon had failed the trial. Both Harkon and Thon were debating as our slave acolyte and Dashade waltz into the office. Harkon once again berates the acolyte and even snatches the map away from them. Harkon then gives the map to Thon. Before the slave acolyte or anyone else can react, Lord Zash walks into the room to see the outcome of the trial. Thon and Harkon both were acting shady, and Zash could sense it. Thon hands Lord Zash the map, but she decides to interrogate him on who it was that retrieved it from the tomb. Zash quickly figured out that Harkon had once again interfered with the trials. Zash's reaction was to shower the acolyte Thon with a deadly spray of force lightning. blistered and charred, the arrogant whelp died and was left to smoulder in the office. The slave acolyte was then instructed to follow Lord Zash to her chamber. Before they leave there, Overseer Harkon dishes out a warning that their feud isn't over and that he knows people all around the Empire. Our slave acolyte had been victorious on Korriban, successfully completing all trials and even achieving goals Sith millennia past could not manage. A true Sith prodigy, the acolyte becomes an apprentice. Our apprentice reports to Lord Zash, after which they are rewarded with their first lightsaber. The apprentice didn't know it yet, but the moment they held the lightsaber for the first time, their ancient ancestor, a ghost wandering the walls of the Dark Temple on Drummond Cars, had sensed the apprentice's presence. A legacy had awoken. Lord Zash instructs her new apprentice to meet her on Drummond Cars, the Sith Citadel and capital. There they could talk more privately and away from the ears of those who would seek to betray. Before being able to leave the world though, our new apprentice is ambushed within the academy walls. 2 Sith apprentices belonging to a Sith Lord named Darth Skirsha had been sent to deliver a message to Zash's new apprentice. Darth Skirsha is a high-ranking Sith Lord who resides on Drummond Cars. He is also a known rival to Zash. The message they had delivered was,
"You will not go to Drummond Cars."
However, despite all the bravado, our apprentice survives unscathed, albeit slightly annoyed by the occasion. When the apprentice makes their way to Drummond Cars to meet with Lord Zash, they bump into Darth Skirsha himself, along with his 2 Trandoshan bodyguards, directly at the spaceport. Darth Skirsha repeats his message in person, along with a warning to the apprentice about serving underneath Zash. Darth Skirsha is under the impression he knows Zash's secret and is waiting for a chance to expose her. When the apprentice brings this information to their master, she decides it's in her best interests to finally kill Darth Skirsha. However, she would not be committing the act personally. Killing Darth Skirsha would require a tremendous amount of cunning and deception. The first part of the plan was to investigate an area known as the Unfinished Colossus, to recover archaeological blueprints of the structure. The blueprints would explain where Darth Skirsha's hidden sanctum was. Zash knew it would be in this area. After succeeding in the first few steps, our apprentice storms into Darth Skirsha's stronghold and steals an ancient Trandoshan relic. This alien relic would give the apprentice control over Darth Skirsha's bodyguards when presenting it to them. Part 1 of the plan was successful. After reporting back to Lord Zash, our apprentice is further instructed to meet with one of Zash's spies held up in Lord Graffin's estate to the southwest. This spy would deliver information on a device that could help inhibit Darth Skirsha, weakening him a great deal. This device was called a cyber neutralizer and was capable of causing malfunction in droids or even cyborgs. Darth Skirsha was heavily implanted with cyborg technology, and this neutralizer would also affect him. The apprentice once again infiltrates another Sith stronghold. This time, it's Lord Graffin's stronghold, and our apprentice is looking for the device. Once it's retrieved, it became time to strike against Darth Skirsha. Lord Zash had commanded her apprentice to be the one to kill Darth Skirsha. This was because if she had done it, she would have been punished by higher-ranking Sith members. However, if a mere apprentice kills a Darth, no one would believe it, and there wouldn't be any evidence to tie Zash to the scene, as she would be present at a party during the act, all planned. Zash sends her apprentice to confront Darth Skirsha in his office, not too far away. When facing him, the apprentice reveals the Trandoshan relic, and can then decide to have them attack Darth Skirsha, or withdraw completely. The relic gave the apprentice complete control over the bodyguards. Either way, this would be done in vain, as Darth Skirsha will lash out against his guards anyways. The apprentice must use the cyber neutralizer to weaken Darth Skirsha and win their duel, of which they are successful. Zash's plan had worked. Darth Skirsha had threatened them both, and now he was dead. But what was the secret he spoke of? And now, this would remain a mystery, with Darth Skirshia dead and Imperial authorities none the wiser to who did it. Zash and her apprentice move on to their next interest. Zash had now inherited Darth Skirshia's position. She even became a Darth and was given a meeting with Darth Thanaton. However, Thanaton would prove to dislike Zash. He did not approve of Zash's un-Sith-like behaviour. She seemed to excel too quick. It was becoming apparent to the apprentice that Lord Zash did not have a great deal of friends. After meeting Zash in her new chambers, and now as a Darth, she instructs her apprentice to investigate the Dark Temple. She talks about a ghost that lingers within the tomb, enraged and enthralled. Zash needs to explore this tomb, but she cannot while the ghost is present. It's the task of the apprentice to enter the Dark Temple, investigate the tomb, and pacify the ghost. This kind of task was very unusual to be given to someone so early in their training. However, Zash had explained that she had a dream through the Force, that she had seen her new apprentice help achieve her goals. Zash buttered her apprentice up with the premise of a prophecy. Within the tomb lied a relic of Twi'lek Horde, a relic that Zash had been led to thanks to all the information acquired back at the trials on Korriban. The apprentice's task was clear: enter the temple, pacify the ghost, and retrieve the artifact. Yet when the apprentice meets this ghost face to face, their destiny would ignite. As fate would have it, the ghost explains to the apprentice that they are related by blood. The ghost was an ancient Sith Lord known as Lord Kallig, who lived during the reign of Twi'lek Horde. Here within the tomb, he guarded an artifact that he took from Twi'lek Horde, the same artifact Lord Zash had been searching for. The apprentice is dumbfounded to say the least, learning that their ancestor was a Grand Sith Lord. Kallig explains that his death brought shame upon his legacy, therefore it was Kallig's fault that his family name was erased and his children's children became slaves, just like our apprentice. Lord Kallig is distressed to learn that his failures have affected his legacy for this long, but now things would change. Kallig believed that the apprentice who stood before him would ascend within the Sith Empire and one day rule over it. The apprentice remains skeptical of the ghost's intentions, but has no reason to believe it is lying right now. Lord Kallig allows his newfound heir to take the artifact of Twi'lek Horde. However, he also offers a warning. He does not know what the artifact uses, but he does know that betrayal follows it everywhere. The ghost implies that Lord Zash would betray them and that they should be cautious moving forward. For now, the ghost departs with its future intentions unclear, but the task for our apprentice was to return to Lord Zash and deliver the artifact. Zash is incredibly impressed to see her new apprentice still alive. She is eager to see the artifact and to continue with their search for more, knowing her apprentice was increasingly competent. Zash begins to tell her apprentice of an ancient ritual she had discovered from Twi'lek Horde's writings. She further explained that she would be performing this ritual on her apprentice to increase their power. The warning the ghost had offered began to eat at the apprentice's mind, but there was no way to challenge Zash on this, so right now they had no choice but to obey and hope she was telling the truth. Zash had discovered that Twi'lek Horde had hidden an ancient Sith ritual via the use of several artifacts. The first artifact is the one found within the Dark Temple, and 4 more are located on the worlds of Balmorra, Nar Shaddaa, Tatooine, and Alderaan. The 5 artifacts seem to come in the form of a datachron. Zash instructs her apprentice to visit each of these worlds and recover all the artifacts. With them all combined for the ritual, great power was promised. When arriving to the world of Balmorra, which is actually one of the core worlds, our apprentice is able to seize many fresh opportunities for gaining new Imperial contacts. Balmorra is under Imperial control, but the resistance is high and the Republic have set up their own defenses too, so aiding the Empire in smaller tasks while hunting down the artifact went easily hand in hand. It doesn't take long for the apprentice to discover the artifact hidden inside an ancient chamber that was infested with deadly and toxic collicoids. It would seem that the artifact's presence may have affected the area in which it resided, and possibly even affected the collicoids. Taking the artifact from the stone podium took a tremendous amount of power. Darth Zash was most pleased with her apprentice's success on Balmorra. She instructs the apprentice to next go to Nar Shaddaa. Another artifact is to be found here. While dispatched to Nar Shaddaa, the apprentice makes contact with a cult of organised crime. The apprentice was following small leads of information that would eventually lead them to the artifact they needed. Also present on the world of Nar Shaddaa was a Sith pureblood known as Lord Palladius. This Sith Lord had established a small power base on Nar Shaddaa and did not appreciate our apprentice snooping around and potentially becoming a rival. After aiding the cult members and many murders of the scum of Nar Shaddaa, the apprentice is able to convince the people that they are more powerful than Lord Palladius. This was mostly due to a public demonstration of power.
This? The world is ending! Don't be fooled! It's a trick!
Eventually the apprentice and Palladius meet face to face, which was convenient because, as it turns out, Palladius had the artifact in his possession. This meant the apprentice could kill Palladius and take the artifact all in one evening. However, when greeted by Lord Palladius, the Sith Lord was able to weaken the apprentice and brazenly claim that he had severed their connection to the Force. Whether or not this was a bluff, it did not matter. The apprentice was increasingly more powerful each day, and today they would not fall. After a brief lightsaber duel, the apprentice claims victory with their Force connection still intact. The apprentice may choose to let Palladius live and lead the cult in their name, or they can choose to kill him for his discretions. Either way, the apprentice takes the artifact and returns to their starship to report back to Darth Zash of their success yet again. After reporting back to Zash, the ancestor of our apprentice once again appears. Lord Kallig appears on the starship to warn their descendant of a threat of betrayal. Darth Zash had been visiting the tomb within the Dark Temple, which the ghost believed was because she was preparing the area for the upcoming ritual. However, Kallig senses a great betrayal and must deliver his warning, so his legacy may be prepared to endure. To help strengthen their resolve and power, Kallig tells the apprentice the location of his mask, an item that should be worn by one of the Kallig bloodline. When the ghost disappears, the apprentice decides to entrust what his ancestor is saying and seek out the mask. Located on Korriban, the mask was currently being worn by a Sith Lord named Crucis. Clearly the mask had been found a long time ago by people who did not deserve or were worthy of claiming it. After a brief conversation and some aggressive negotiations, the Sith Lord surrendered the mask and it was returned to its rightful owner and bloodline. The apprentice may choose to wear the mask and represent their ancestors' iconic armor of the ancients. With Kallig's helmet in hand, and 3 artifacts in total found, there was only 2 more to find before the ritual Zash spoke of could be performed. The next location was the scorching world of Tatooine. Here the apprentice was due to meet a pirate named Andronicus Revel, a contact Darth Zash knew herself. This pirate would aid the apprentice on their task, all while settling their own personal score with an old friend. After surviving this treacherous world, the apprentice was finally led to the artifact out in the Dune Sea. a somewhat easy recovery compared to the previous worlds visited so far. Andronicus asks the apprentice if they can join their crew aboard the starship, which means that the apprentice now has 2 companions, 3 if you include the droid that came with the ship. The apprentice reported back to Darth Zash as per routine and was redirected to the world of Alderaan to find the next and final artifact. Alderaan is a lush and beautiful world filled with tall trees and awe-striking mountains. However, the noble houses of Alderaan were, as per usual, squabbling. Conflict between houses was fueled even more so by the ongoing galactic war. After reaching out to contacts within the noble houses that Darth Zash had preemptively arranged, the apprentice was able to discover that the artifact was being guarded by a Jedi. This Jedi's name was Nermar Organa. Apparently, the dark side artifact had been passed down from this Jedi's family over the generations, each era charged with its protection to keep it from the hands of evil. Evil had arrived. The apprentice was able to confront and defeat this Jedi and then locate the artifact, which was being held atop a great Elysium that rose from the ground hundreds of meters. After infiltrating the site and slaying many Jedi, the artifact was found and taken. Once the apprentice returned with the final artifact on their starship, Darth Zash contacts them via holo. She explains that she is preparing things for the ritual and that her apprentice should meet with her here. However, when the apprentice travels through hyperspace and arrives at the world's atmosphere, the holo communicator calls again, except this time it would be Darth Thanaton on the line. Thanaton introduces himself formally and then proceeds to insult the apprentice about their slave heritage, something that many Sith will likely drag into conversation. It was an easy insult against an alien who dared to become Sith. Thanaton explains that Lord Zash is not present on the world. He further explained that he knew what she and the apprentice were up to. However, he was choosing to let things play out, as he was curious about the apprentice and what they will do. Whether or not Thanaton really knew what was happening is unclear. What was clear is that he wanted to watch Darth Zash self-destruct, which was a curious statement. Before the call ended, Thanaton also warned the apprentice about being caught in the blast, as it would seem Darth Zash had a lot of red flags, as far as being a master to study under is concerned. When Thanaton ends the communication, the ghost of Kallig appears once again.
My child, your power has grown since we last met. Your strength will rise and shake the Sith. I feel it.
Kallig appears once more to warn his descendants of his master's betrayal yet again. The ghost had identified Zash's ritual that she was preparing, and he recognized it as a dangerous ancient magic, one capable of shielding a person from the Force. This didn't match up with what Zash said before, so the dots started to connect themselves. The apprentice was 99% sure that their master, Darth Zash, would betray them in some way with this ritual. It was important for the apprentice to prepare for the battle to come, so Lord Kallig directs them to a new mission, to find Kallig's lightsaber, which is now a family heirloom that belongs to the apprentice. They must go to Nar Shaddaa once again to retrieve an item that will strengthen the legacy's resolve further. Once the lightsaber was acquired from some pathetic gambler, the apprentice makes their way for Darth Zash. The confrontation must happen, and the apprentice must overcome. Once again, the ghost of Kallig appears to offer some final words of wisdom before the confrontation begins. It's advised that the apprentice does not go alone, so they decide to take the Dashade with them, as they are a powerful companion. Darth Zash contacts her apprentice via holo to alert them that the ritual is prepared, and she awaits their arrival at the Dark Temple on Drummond Cars. With great haste, the apprentice arrives, with Kem Val at their side. As they enter the room, a cold and dark embrace is apparent. Dark magics are at work here. Darth Zash stood at the top of the stairs that would lead to the tomb's podium, her back turned to the apprentice. Her voice was withered, aged. All the artifacts were in place and the ritual would soon begin. Darth Zash reveals her true face, her true identity, an old and haggard woman. A walking corpse could be more accurate. Zash had planned to find a new body to live in. Her urn was destroyed. Zash's true age is unknown, but it became clear that she had been working her way up through the Sith hierarchy so she could go about her business unquestioned. She had been keen on the apprentice's body from the moment she first laid eyes on them. She had manipulated the apprentice into believing they were part of her dreams and visions. Yet the apprentice came prepared, and when Zash striked, the apprentice reacted and was able to defeat Zash in combat. In a last desperate attempt to live on, Zash activates the ritual and attempts to swap bodies with her former apprentice, but the Dasherd had jumped in to intervene, and Zash's ritual took effect on her and the beast. Zash's consciousness had been thrown into the Dasherd. There she would be trapped for a long time, forced to watch her apprentice through the eyes of the monster rise in the Sith and not be able to do anything about it. Darth Zash was essentially no more. If you want to find out more information about what happened next with the Dasherd and Darth Zash, then be sure to check out this video here. The explained playlist grows stronger. After the defeat of Darth Zash, the apprentice was contacted by Darth Thanaton, who declared that the apprentice was now a Sith Lord. This was because Zash is now dead and her apprentice is set to inherit her position. Usually when you kill a Darth, you become a Darth yourself. Yet because this apprentice, now a Sith Lord, is an alien, they are being subject to discrimination. Therefore the promotion to Sith Lord was really the least they could have done. Thanaton tells our Sith Lord that if they want to progress with the Sith, then they should meet in person at the tomb of a Dark Lord named Darth Andrew. When arriving, Thanaton explains to our Sith Lord that they must retrieve an item from the tomb to earn his favour. He seemed to be quite friendly, however his intentions were deceitful. Our Sith Lord had headed into the tomb completely unaware that the ghost of Darth Andrew kills all who enter. This tomb is where Thanaton sends people he wants to die. Fortunately for our Sith Lord, his ancestor Lord Kallig appears in time to save them from certain doom. Lord Kallig begins to scold the Sith Lord about being the last of his name. Caution and patience should be exercised and controlled. Kallig explains that Thanaton had also intended to betray them, of course. He also reveals an ancient force power, one lost over generations. The power to force walk is the ability of consuming force-imbued ghosts to absorb and wield their power. It's an ancient art that had previously destroyed many Sith Lords. It would take time and skill to master, but first, learning the ability was more important. Kallig tells his descendant that using this power to absorb ghosts, our Sith Lord could reshape the Sith Order in any way they see fit. They would even be strong enough to kill Thanaton for his betrayal. Kallig further reveals the location of another tomb, the tomb of another Dark Lord past by the name of Ergast. This former Dark Lord is one of the ancient Darkside users who were able to use this power, force walking. After a trial that involved drinking poison, the ghost of Ergast teaches the Sith Lord how to force walk and then challenges them to a confrontation. Using the new power of force walking, the Sith Lord must absorb Ergast or forever be stuck in the tomb. The Sith Lord channels their dark energy and creates a manifestation of purple smoke and lightning. They were able to successfully absorb the ghost and inherit their power. The voice of the ghost could be heard within the Sith Lord's mind. It would be there for as long as they decided to keep it. No other rules were mentioned. Without too much pause, the Sith Lord makes their way back to the tomb of Darth Andrew, where they confront them and take them by force for another increase in power. However, the power was clearly a lot, and it took all the Sith Lord had to offer to maintain their composure. With the ghost pacified, our Sith Lord would be free to return to Thanaton with the requested item in hand. Failure was never an option. When the Sith Lord was able to meet up with Thanaton, they quickly discovered that Thanaton wanted them dead anyways. The Darth had personally attempted to kill our Sith Lord by enveloping them with lightning and leaving them for dead on the floor. But our Sith Lord was able to endure, and they survived the encounter. Had they not taken the power from the two ghosts, then right now they would be dead. Thanaton had actually killed the Sith Lord, but the presence of the ghosts kept them alive. This ancient technique was proving to be worth it. After this incursion, the Sith Lord regroups on their starship with the crew and comes up with a plan of action. The plan was to hunt down the most powerful ghosts in the galaxy, find them and strike revenge against Thanaton, and once again ascend within the Sith. One of Zash's former informants had reported that the Jedi were investigating a ghost presence on the world of Taris. Since the plan was to find more ghosts, that's where they headed. When investigating the surface, the Sith Lord discovers the Jedi had a Padawan named Ashara Zavros, who is allegedly related to the ghost that they are investigating here on Taris. The problem for the Jedi, though, is the ghost is an ancient Sith Lord named Kalatosh Zavros. The ghost refused to speak with Jedi. The Padawan Ashara had a connection to them and was able to summon them. When our Sith Lord learned this information, they made it priority number 1 to find this Padawan and either corrupt them to the dark side or force them into servitude and submission. After locating the Padawan, the Sith Lord sets up a ploy to gain their trust via defending the Padawan against the Empire. This showed Ashara that the Sith Lord meant no harm. After a brief conversation with the Padawan, the Sith Lord convinces her to summon the ghost, so they may put it to rest. What they actually meant was absorb it, of course. When the Sith Lord meets with the Padawan at the haunted ruins, her Jedi Master was present. Our Sith Lord can choose to kill them, or choose not to fight. If they choose not to fight, then the Jedi attack first, which shows the Padawan Ashara that the Jedi don't always practice peace. Once the Jedi Master's pitiful attempt concluded, our Sith Lord reacted by charring their fairy corpse with lethal force lightning. As agreed, Ashara summons the ghost, and the Sith Lord springs into action. The ghost attempted to resist, but the Sith Lord had become incredibly powerful, making the ghost's attempts futile. The Sith Lord had managed to calm the ghost, and then take it by force, for yet another increase in power. Amazed at the display, Ashara explains that she would like to follow the Sith Lord and join the crew. She can be forced to do so, but will choose to come along if the Sith Lord has a neutral or light side alignment. Would you like to see an Ashara Zavros explained video? Let me know in the comments. After absorbing the ghost known as Kalatosh Zavros, our Sith Lord must rush to the world of Quesh to aid their allies. When Darth Zash was defeated, the Sith Lord inherited all her information and possessions, along with her other apprentices, named Karl and Corrin. These apprentices were under threat on Quesh, and it was the Sith Lord's duty to defend them. Thanaton had sent a Sith Lord known as Cineratus to kill Karl and Corrin and deliver a damaging blow to our Sith Lord's reputation. They can choose to bribe this Lord Cineratus so he stops working for Thanaton, or they can just kill him. Our Sith Lord must replace what has been lost, otherwise they risk looking even weaker to the eyes of the other Sith. So the Sith Lord heads for Korriban, where a new group of acolytes has arrived to face the trials. This meant once again having to speak with Overseer Harkon, except this time the Sith Lord is Harkon's superior in rank and power. The Overseer can't help but choke on his bitterness, as he has to obey every wish and command made by the Sith Lord, who he used to call slave. The Sith Lord checks out this new group and can see one of them has great potential, a Kallig by the name of Twi'lek. Once all of the trials were complete, the Sith Lord could come back and claim their new apprentice. And now, they returned to their starship and began to plan for the next ghost hunt. Andronicus Revel had heard rumours of a starship carrying Sith artifacts from Yavin 4 crash landing on the surface of Hoth about a year ago. Since then, the local people have been whispering rumours of odd behaviour and happenings. After confirming that it was indeed Sith artifacts on board the ship, the crew decide to go looking for it in hopes of finding a new ghost to bind among the ancient relics. After recruiting a new companion to their cause by the name of Talos Drellic, they were able to find more clues that would lead them to the location of the downed wreckage. Talos Drellic was an Imperial loyalist, but their true passions lied with history and archaeological findings, especially those of dark side interest. Eventually, our Sith Lord is able to commune with an ancient Force spirit, an ancient Sith Lord from a time long past, Horak Mul. This ancient Dark Lord had been possessing people, creatures, and even droids from beyond the grave, giving truth to the odd rumours about the surface of Hoth. This Force spirit was seeking revenge against Naga Sadow's servants, whose tombs were built on Hoth. Clearly, Horak Mul and Naga Sadow did not see eye to eye. When the Sith Lord deals with the spirit's request of vandalism in the tombs, they meet face to face. Our Sith Lord can convince Horak Mul to join them in being bound, or they can simply take him by force. With the spirit and power of Horak Mul now bound, that gives our Sith Lord a staggering count of 4 ancient Dark Lord spirits residing within them, surrendering their power at a whim. Now was the time to strike against Thanaton and kill him. The crew and our Sith Lord make their way for Drummond Cars, which is where Thanaton is situated. They storm into his dark chambers, but Thanaton is already there waiting for them. After a quick lightsaber duel with Thanaton's apprentices, our Sith Lord demonstrates their grand power in full for the first time. However, things take a turn for the worst when the ghosts begin to rebel. They grow tired of being used and treat like dirt. Not only that, but the Dark Lord Ergast had only just now revealed that any Sith who binds more than one ghost would be doomed to lose control. Our Sith Lord blacks out during the confrontation.
You must stop this nonsense now.
Don't let him talk to you like that. He's a treacherous snake. Cut out his fangs. Careful now. Don't lose control.
I warned you my ritual was dangerous. I warned you it was not for the weak, but you drank the poison.
After some time, they wake up and are updated on the situation by the crew. Absorbing so many ghosts has damaged the Sith Lord's mind and body. It was of critical importance that they find a way to stay alive and heal. After returning to the ship, the crew was able to find information about a previous Dark Lord who had a similar issue. This previous Dark Lord had so much power that their body began to deteriorate over time. It's rumoured that they went to Belsavis in an attempt to find an ancient Rakatan technology that would remake them. With the details unclear and vague, the Sith Lord decides to investigate on the world of Belsavis. Eventually, they are led to a device deep within the world's caverns, where a hollow AI of a Rakatan alien was found. Its name was Mother. This AI informed the Sith Lord that her machine could heal them and remake them. It's implied that this machine had something to do with the creation of the Zabrak, Rataki, and other species of alien. However, the machine could not fix the Sith Lord's mind, and therefore they would be needing to look elsewhere to fix that problem. Once the ancient Rakatan machine worked its magics, our Sith Lord's body was able to now fully enjoy the power of the ghosts. therefore presenting no more problems. Now that the body was healed, the mind was next. The ghosts were bound to the Sith Lord, but their mind had to be strong enough to control them all at once. Right now, our Sith Lord cannot use the ghost's power. The crew discovers another rumor that explains a Darth Vilus had once heard voices in their head and came to the world of Voss for a healing ritual that cured them. With this new information, the Sith Lord quickly heads for the world of Voss. After arriving, they ask questions about this healing ritual, which leads the Sith Lord down an unforgiving journey. They must face the ghosts in different trials and overcome them from within. After allying with one of the Voss visionaries, our Sith Lord was finally able to access a healing ritual that did indeed strengthen and heal the mind. This meant that the Sith Lord could now fully control the ghosts and even summon their dark power once again. However, bad news arrived just before the Voss expedition. Darth Thanaton has become a Dark Council member after succeeding his master. This now meant our Sith Lord was caught in a feud with one of the most influential Sith of their time. Not good. Yet they did not let this affect their resolve. It was imperative to continue, and building a power base was next on the agenda. The Sith Lord spends some time collecting their apprentice, which indeed turned out to be Zerlik.
I like his style.
They also network with Imperial Moths, who help to connect the Sith Lord with more powerful allies. A power base was forming. Even the cult on Nar Shaddaa was thriving after another brief visit to maintain business. With most agendas pretty much ticked off the list, it was finally time to strike out again at Thanaton. Currently, Thanaton was on the world of Corellia, which is where the warfighting was most intense. The Sith Lord makes their way there to start assaulting Thanaton's power base, to weaken his public image and draw him out into a confrontation. Thanaton knew full well that our Sith Lord had become incredibly powerful, and wanted to avoid a direct confrontation right now. Despite that, Thanaton decides to broadcast a public message to the Sith Lord. A challenge to Kagath. The Kagath is an old tradition within the Sith. If you were challenged, it meant another Sith Lord pretty much wants to go to war with you. Power base versus power base, until one emerges victorious. With the challenge made public, our Sith Lord must accept and begin the challenge on Corellia. After dealing blows to each other on the world, the time to meet must finally come again. However, when Thanaton faces our Sith Lord, he chooses not to attack, but simply allow his allies to fight for him. It did not take long for Thanaton to realize he was in danger, as when it was his turn to attack, he had to fight for his life. Thanaton was able to escape the situation, but this was a public embarrassment. He wasn't able to fight off a mere Sith Lord who had once been a slave. The disgrace would be irreparable. In a surprising move, Thanaton decides to summon the Dark Council on Korriban to discuss his situation with the Sith Lord. However, things did not go in his favour. Our Sith Lord was able to follow Darth Thanaton to Korriban and burst into the Dark Council chambers during session. This was a crime, but the Sith Lord had business with Thanaton and the Kagath could not be withdrawn. Seeing as Thanaton fled Corellia, this should mean he loses, yet here he is in the Dark Council chambers begging for help.
If we are to conquer our enemies, Zash's former apprentice must die.
At last, with all ghosts under full control, our Sith Lord defeats Thanaton and ascends to his position on the Dark Council, knighted a Darth of the Sith by the absolute monster that is Darth Maul himself. Our Darth can take one of three names: Nox, Imperius, Oclus. Each represents a different alignment to the Force. Along with the title, our Darth is promoted to head of the Ancient Pyramid of Knowledge, a prestigious position, perhaps the one that Lord Kallig foresaw. What was clear now is that this Sith Inquisitor is the most powerful Sith, second to just the Emperor himself. Even the Emperor's wrath would think twice before approaching this Dark Lord. The newly titled Darth may choose to let the ghosts leave and be free, or they can choose to keep them bound forever, gorging on their power. Either way, the legacy of Kallig endures, and the legacy of slavery is avenged.